Hi, cool cats. And hello, cool kittens. Uncle Matt here. It's the day you've all been waiting for, the conclusion of Disney Madness. The ultimate Walt Disney World attraction tournament reaches its conclusion today. You get to find out who I have as my winner, because this is my tournament. I get to decide. That's the only deciding factor. There's no votes, there's no, games being played. It's just straight up. Who do I like the best? What are my rides? When the rides go head to head, which one do I like better? If this is the first one you've tuned into, you can play along too. I've got a link in the description down below to where I got my tournament bracket, allears.net. They did a great job setting this up so that I could do this and play along and have my own fun version of it. They actually did a online vote through social media to determine a winner, so you can actually also see how their tournament played out, who won that version of the championship, see where they lined up with me, see where they lined up with you, and we can all see how different we are or how alike we are. Maybe everybody had the exact same tournament. I don't know. Anything's possible. But without further ado, today we are going to do the Elite Eight. We're going to do the Final Four, and we are going to crown a champion. Only one attraction can remain standing. Place your bets in the comments down below, because there's no sports going on, so it's the only thing you can bet on is who's going to win my tournament. Tournament. All right, first up, tough matchup. We have Haunted Mansion against the Tower of Terror. Obviously, two very similar attractions. They're basically both Disney-fied versions of haunted houses in different ways. It's never easy to pick when you get to this point because all the rides are going to be great. Here's where I kind of weigh in on this one. I would say, the Haunted Mansion was the championship belt holder for a very long time. But when Tower of Terror came along, it basically took everything that Haunted Mansion had done and improved it, innovated it, took it to the next level. The theming, the immersion, the thrilling nature of it, the show itself within the show is absolutely incredible. And it's hard to go against the Haunted Mansion because it's the OG, it's the originator. It's what kind of probably inspired a lot of what went into creating the Tower of Terror. But I just think Tower of Terror took everything Haunted Mansion did, cranked it up a notch, took it up a notch, made it better, newer, more modern. Tower of Terror going through to the next round. The first qualifier for the Final Four. Congratulations. Next up, we have two space rides. We've got Spaceship Earth against Space Mountain. This one, maybe it shouldn't be, but it's a little bit easier for me. I'm just a person who always defaults to preferring thrill rides over non-thrill rides. Spaceship Earth's a great experience. It's always fun. I do it every time I go. But, I think I said this earlier in the video, when you've got a tough matchup, ultimately one of the things that helps me decide is if I could only ride one or the other, which one would I choose to ride? In this particular matchup, Space Mountain is what I would pick to ride if I had to pick between the two. So for that reason, Space Mountain joins Tower of Terror in the Final Four. Next matchup, Battle of the Mountains. We've got Everest versus Splash Mountain. Now, this one's a little more difficult than the last one because, as I mentioned, I kind of default to thrill rides. Well, you kind of got two thrill rides going head to head here, So it's a tougher matchup than the one before because you got to weigh out a whole lot more. And ultimately, I got to go with Splash Mountain on this one. I think it's a masterclass in Disney Imagineering, just all the animatronics, the story that you're going through as you're going through the ride. Because, at the end of the day, one of the things about Splash Mountain is it's a flume ride, it's a log ride. We talked at the very start, the very first matchup with Kali River Rapids about how a lot of rides at Disney are a ride you could ride in any other park and they just sprinkle a little Disney magic on it. But this one, they went a lot more than just sprinkling a little Disney magic on it. They made this something absolutely amazing and incredible. One of the sneakily amazing things about Splash Mountain is I've ridden it no telling how many times, and the fake drops get me every time. I always still think, the first 2 or 3 fake drops oh, here it goes, this is the one. And then it's like a little small drop. I'm like, oh crap, what the heck just happened? I don't know why. I don't know if it's just the way the story's set up, if it's the way the structure of the ride is, that you're just looking at other stuff and distracted and not really thinking about where you are in the ride. But those first couple like false drops, I always think are the big one, no matter how many times I ride it. To me, that's a great sign of a great ride, that you don't have it all memorized. You don't know every step of it. You can still be somewhat surprised by it. So I love Expedition Everest. It's an awesome ride, but Splash Mountain just has a little bit more to it, a little bit more Disney magic. So Splash Mountain, on to the Final Four. Our final Elite 8 matchup sees the Cinderella Story Muppet Vision 3D going head-to-head with the Rock and Roller Coaster. And I really, 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 really badly want the Cinderella run to continue. I really want to put Muppet Vision 3D into the Final Four. But if I stick to what I've said, if I go with the deciding factor being which ride would I choose to ride if I could only ride one or the other, or which attraction would I choose to visit if I could only experience one or the other, in this case, the thrill ride wins out. I would choose to ride Rock and Roller Coaster over going to see a showing of Muppet Vision 3D. Muppet Vision 3D's had a great run. Rock and Roller Coaster just kind of sneaks by it barely. It'd be tough, but I think ultimately Rock and Roller Coaster is the attraction I would choose to ride if I had to choose between the two. Rock and Roller Coaster is your final member of the Final Four. Let's see who's going to win it all. All right, this is where it gets hard. We are into the Final Four attractions. And the first match we have in the Final Four, Space Mountain, Tower of Terror. Now, I mentioned several times in the earlier rounds about how Space Mountain has the added benefit of making you think there's a chance you might actually die while riding it. Guess what? It has finally come up against another attraction that also has that same factor, Tower of Terror. Because even though the drops are controlled, even though they're, part of the ride, there's still that element where somewhere in your brain you're thinking, like a real elevator could snap and fall. This thing might snap and fall. I don't think it's going to happen because I trust Disney. I trust that it's safe. But that little nugget in the back of your head is telling you, but maybe. So when you take that, and that's kind of the big thing Space Mountain had going for it in a lot of its matchups, you add in all the other great elements that Tower of Terror has going for it, the queue, just the design of it. The cast members are incredible. Like I don't know that there's any other ride where the cast members seem to be more into playing their role than at the Tower of Terror. They are really bellhops. They are really elevator operators. They really believe this horrific event happened all these years ago and that the tower is now haunted. It's just, there's so much to it beyond just the drop. But you got all that plus the drop that might kill you. Space Mountain might kill you, but it doesn't have all that other stuff to go to it. So Tower of Terror is your first ride to qualify for the championship match. Now our next matchup to see who is going to go head-to-head with Tower of Terror for the Ultimate Disney Attraction title. We've got Rock and Roller Coaster versus Splash Mountain. Now, a lot of the things I just said in the previous matchup hold true here. Both great attractions, both thrilling, both have their fun elements. But Splash Mountain has so much more to it than just outside of the ride. The whole accoutrement. Is that a word that fits here? I'm going to say it. The accoutrement that Splash Mountain has just is on a whole nother level than Rock and Roller Coaster. Now, Rock and Roller Coaster, because the actual ride itself is one of the actual best rides, in my opinion, in the parks, it has the chance to, much like Dinosaur, maybe go up a notch just by kind of taking what's existing around the ride and changing it up. Because unfortunately, Aerosmith, that whole element of the ride is starting to feel a little dated. I got to give kudos to Disney because, picking Aerosmith was a great selection because I don't know many other bands that could have held up in that position for as long as Aerosmith has. But it's been 20 years, so I think it is kind of time maybe to look at doing something different with that ride. I don't think I'd go with another band because I don't think any really modern bands would have that same staying power realistically that Aerosmith did that made it work for so long. I hate to suggest bringing an IP because that's something that people really are frowning upon in Disney parks these days. I'm not that big of a enemy of it. I don't really care that much about IP coming in the parks. Whatever, it's fine with me. For example, I believe it's the Paris version of the Rock and Roller Coaster has been converted over to an Iron Man roller coaster. That's not possible in Florida because Universal owns the rights to most of the Marvel properties in Florida, but maybe there's some other, element IP that you could fit in there to kind of freshen Rock and Roller Coaster up, make it have a better pre-show, a more modern queue, a more modern story to the ride, because the actual roller coaster itself, the bare bones of the roller coaster with the launch, the loops, the kind of indoor nature of it, like I said, I love indoor roller coasters. It's got a lot going for it. I think with some updates to kind of give it more of those elements that the best Disney rides all have, could really maybe make it, in a future tournament, it could go all the way maybe. I don't know. But that's something we'd have to see before we could do that. I can't advance the Rock and Roller Coaster past Splash Mountain based on something that might happen. So Splash Mountain, championship game. Here we go. All right, this is it, the championship matchup of our Ultimate Disney Attractions Tournament. Once again, these are my rankings. You probably disagree with a lot of them, but for me, these are my top two. I'm not surprised that this is the championship, because if I was going to do a ranking of my favorite rides in Disney World, these two would probably be at the top of the list. So it's not totally surprising to me that they made it to the finals. It was kind of fun to go through and see why, see who else went how far and where, but I kind of from the get-go thought these two would be here in the end. And of course, here they are. I'm glad All Ears structured the tournament in a way where this could be the finals, because had these two met in the Final Four instead of in the final matchup, that would have felt a little anticlimactic to me. But that being said, let's get into who's going to win it all. And it's tough here because these both have very similar elements. A lot of things I've talked about how they have just all the key elements, the stories of the rides, the immersion, the cues are great. But ultimately, I got to go with Tower of Terror. One of the big reasons, as I mentioned in the previous round, the cast members. They just bring so much more to Tower of Terror than just about any other attraction I can think of in all of the parks. But the big one that gets it, is just the whole queue. Just you're walking through a hotel, and every inch of it looks like an old Hollywood hotel. Like, realistically, there's nothing that looks like you're walking onto a theme park ride. It really looks like you're walking into an old abandoned hotel. Then you go into that room, and this is the best part about it. This is the way I'll put it. A cast member that I had the pleasure of meeting told me that the ride actually starts in the queue. And I think no attraction holds that more true than Tower of Terror. It holds it so true that one of my friend's parents actually thought they were going to drop when they're in the little waiting room where you watch the Rod Serling film. That's how immersive and fully thought out the queue portion of Tower of Terror is, that somebody would think, oh my God, this is where the ride is. I'm about to get dropped, and everybody else is just standing here and not even afraid. And so he kind of went over to the wall and was clinging to the wall because he thought he was on the ride. That's how in-depth the queue to Tower of Terror is, that somebody would think that. That's crazy to think that. But just going beyond that, then you go down to the boiler room. Everybody down there is playing along. And before you even get to the drops, the actual part of the ride, just where you're going through, you see the visual effects recreating the story. You legitimately feel like you're in an episode of The Twilight Zone. And I really hope they don't ever retheme the Tower of Terror. I know they've already done it out in Disneyland, but it just would feel so weird for it to be anything other than what it is right now. So I hope that never changes, because all of those elements just come together to make it my favorite Disney attraction. I mean, I kind of knew it was going to win from the get-go, but I had to play it out. I had to see how it all came together. I had to see the rides actually side by side and think about them. But, as I would have predicted beforehand, the Tower of Terror is your champion. It is the best attraction at Walt Disney World. This is, of course, just my opinion. You have the opportunity to fill out this bracket, select your own champion, and if you'd like, you can let me know who won your bracket in the comments down below. You can also subscribe to this channel to make sure you figure out when we're going to have more videos coming out. But if you just subscribe, that won't be enough. you also need to ring that bell down there to make sure you get every single notification. So when our next video comes out, whatever it may be, you will find out. Oh, sorry, my nose itches. Congratulations to the Tower of Terror. It is my favorite ride at Disney World at the time of filming. But this was a fun way to do a video series. I really enjoyed this. I've got a couple ideas for more tournament series. You know, we've got to find things to do right now, and I think this is a fun and entertaining way to kill some time. It was a fun way to make a series of videos. It's a good way for me to be able to keep videos coming. You know, I've said before, I want to try to stick to daily videos just because I'm trying to do this to not only keep myself from going crazy from boredom, but also to give, you know, whoever's watching this something to do during these times. So I'm going to do my best to keep these daily. And I think doing tournaments like this kind of a series, it gave me basically 5 days of content, you know, so it's a week knocked out right there. So I got a couple ideas for a couple more tournaments, but next week we'll probably go back to some just like daily change up videos. I don't want to just do all tournaments. I don't want to become the tournament channel. That would probably get boring if it was just all that, but I do have some ideas. We'll probably do some more in the future, but that wraps up this one. It was fun. I hope you enjoyed it. Oh, golly, my nose itches. Thank you for watching along. Please do not stand so close to me. Hello there. You probably thought the vlog was over, but it's not. This is what we in the business call a post-credit scene. And it's a very appropriate episode to have a post-credit scene because what I'm coming to talk to you today about is some very exciting things that we have planned coming up in the next few days on the channel. First of all, on Monday, we're going to launch a new series of videos called Marvel Monday. How creative is that? What we're going to do is we're going to go back and watch all the movies from the Marvel Cinematic Universe and then come back and kind of do a recap, deep dive, talk about some interesting facts behind the scenes of them. Should be fun. Going to do that on Mondays. So we're going to start Monday with Iron Man. Now, I went back and forth on whether I wanted to do the chronological order of the movies, as in starting with Captain America, the first Avenger, which took place in the 40s, and working our way up, or if I wanted to do an order of release. Ultimately, I decided order of release because I kind of think for the purposes of the videos I want to make, it's more interesting to kind of talk through and look at how the whole universe, the actual films themselves kind of came together, how it went from being Iron Man, a sort of below the radar C-list superhero, to the most successful box office franchise of all time. So that starts Monday. So sometime this weekend, when you're bored looking for something to do, watch Iron Man, so you'll be ready for Monday's episode. The other thing going down this weekend, Saturday night, 8 o'clock, we're going to do a live stream watch-along of Back to the Future Part 2. We did Back to the Future Part 1 last week, but I didn't do a good job of letting people know about it. But the videos from that are in the channel. You can go back and watch them while you watch Back to the Future 1 to get caught up. Then tune in tomorrow night, Saturday night, 8 o'clock, Back to the Future Part 2. So that's what we've got coming up on here. Thanks again for tuning in as always. Bye.